The House will please come to order. I would like to welcome everyone to the 18th day of the session, Wednesday, March 6, 2024. I'm just going to do a quick this day in history before I do the roll call. I haven't done one all year. This one, some people will really like this one, others may not. So today, March 6th of 1884, Sheridan, Wyoming is incorporated. Sheridan is named after Philip Sheridan, who was born on this day. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Convening roll call for the 18th day, Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. Alamand? Present. Allred? Here. Andrew? Here. Angelos? Here. Banks? Here. Bear? Here. Berger? Here. Brown? Here. Burkhart?
Excused.
Byron?
Here.
Chadwick?
Excused.
Chestick?
Here.
Clouston?
Excused.
Conrad?
Here.
Crago?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Eklund?
Here.
Haroldson?
Here.
Harshman?
Excused.
Heiner?
Here.
Henderson?
Here.
Hornock?
Excused.
Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Larson JT?
Excused.
Lawley? Locke?
Present.
Nyman?
Here.
Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup?
Here.
Oakley?
Excused.
Obermuller?
Here.
O'Hearn?
Excused.
Olson?
Here.
Ottman? Pendergraft?
Here.
Penn?
Excused.
Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo?
Excused.
Walters? Ward?
Excused.
Washut?
Here.
Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin?
Excused.
Zwanitzer Dan?
Excused.
Zwanitzer Dave?
Here.
Speaker Summers?
Here.
Penn?
Chief, let's hold that roll call till after we greet each other. So the prayer of the day today is provided by Alexa Bassett, the youth leader in the Sunrise Ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Please rise.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we humbly bow before Thee this morning to pray for Thy guidance. We are truly grateful for the opportunity to gather here today. We are so grateful to live in this country where we have the right to freedom, and we are thankful for this beautiful state that we call home. We are thankful for the freedoms and the rights and privileges that we enjoy. We're thankful to those who serve our state, and we pray that Thy Spirit may abide with us today. We ask that our hearts and minds might be open to new ideas, and that the discussions and decisions made today will have a positive impact on our community. And we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Youth Leader Bassett, for those words. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The House will please come to order. Chief Clerk, could you finish that roll call?
Burkhart. Chadwick. Klauston. Harshman. Hornock. Larson JT. Oakley. O'Hearn. Trujillo.
Excused.
Ward. Yin. Zwaniter Dan. Trujillo.
Close it.
61 present, 1 excused.
All right, I'm going to do one, I'm going to do the doctor of the day. The doctor of the day is Matt Strang from the Family Medicine in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I don't know if he's back there, but even if he isn't, give him a hand. Matt Strang. So in case you couldn't hear me, that was Dr. Matt Strang. And I got one privilege of the floor. Representative O'Hearn,
Privilege, Mr. Speaker.
please.
Yeah, it's David Northrup's birthday today, and Dalton Banks
Yes.
said he wanted to lead us. So Dalton, you go to one of the mics, because he is quite the singer. Not comparable to our representative sing up front, but I think Dalton Banks is quite the singer.
I'll give
Go
us
ahead.
the first note and then shut the mic off. Happy
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear David. Happy birthday to you.
It's quite obvious we have a lot of good singers on the floor right now.
All right. Okay, any other lighthearted privileges before I go to appropriations? So Chairman Larson, Chairman of JCC2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if this is privilege or not, or just an update, but your Joint Conference Committee on House Bill 1 met yesterday. The morning we spent really re-educating new members of the second committee on where we had been at in conversations and in the development of the budget. Last night, we met as a committee and passed through all the differences and resolved those differences and voted on, in a positive manner, accepting the amended version of the budget. What that means now is it'll take the staff 24 to 48 hours, just depending on just what they're able to get done to get all of that crafted into a report and then inserted into the budget bill. What that means for the two bodies is we hope, but we're not setting a firm deadline on staff, that maybe we can have that report by tomorrow afternoon, present that to you for your consideration. And then I think our goal is, Mr. Speaker, looking at you, as the possibility of voting on that budget on Friday morning. And that certainly is subject to change, just depending on what staff needs and what snags they may run into. We're really deferring to their time and not putting them under guidelines. They've carried a huge burden trying to get this done in the amount of time that we're provided. So, Mr. Speaker, will allow you to correct any of that scheduling change difference that I may be in error on.
Yeah, Chairman Larson, I think it's more likely going to be Friday morning, but we'll wait and see kind of how things go. And it may be Friday morning explanation and vote. We'll just kind of wait and see how it all goes. We don't want to pressure staff too hard. They don't need to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, let's do the Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of March 5th, 2024 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Chestick and Ward.
Messages from the Senate.
Message number 6. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Wyoming Statute 28-12-102, the Senate voted on the confirmation of the governor's appointments, including the investment funds appointments, and confirmed all nominees by the votes indicated. Ayes 28, noes 1, excused 2. Ayes 21, noes 10. Ayes 30, noes 1. Ayes 19, noes 12. Ayes 30, noes 1. Ayes 30, noes 1. Ayes 30, noes 1. Message 283. Mr. Speaker, the Senate adopted the Committee of the Whole report, failing the bill listed below by the vote indicated. House Bill 134, Property Tax Deferral Program Amendments. Ayes 6, noes 18, excused 7. This bill has been indefinitely postponed. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
All right, we are at that order of business of bills on second reading. The first bill for our consideration is Senate File 13. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 13, sponsored by Agriculture. Federal Land Use Plans, Legal Actions Authorized.
We have amendments. Representative Wiley. Representative Wiley.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Long way around. I would like to move second reading Amendment 1 to Senate File 13 with favorable consideration. My honorable cohorts, this, I agreed with everybody yesterday. I think if anything that we're putting out a statement, I would like to increase it from 50 million to 75 million. And then I also added a new Romanette that basically says if there is no litigation being pursued by the Attorney General, that the counties can come to this body and ask for money out of that 75 million put aside to continue litigation. I would please ask for your favorable consideration.
Anybody else for your first time? Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against this amendment, I would oppose this amendment because the county commissioners do have a method of accessing funds and the Attorney General's office through the governor's office. And this body does not have that. This bill is about providing this body with funds and standing in order to bring lawsuits. When we've seen that the office that deals with lawsuits for the state does not take action, we need to be able to take that action. And that's what this is about. This is a body that represents the people by being closest to the people, and we need to be able to act. That's what this bill is about. The amendment damages that. On and against the amendment.
Representative Henderson for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm on and against the amendment, but I'm in favor of public participation. And I think we have to be good fiscal stewards of the public money. There are already processes in place to take care of these kind of things. And I don't think throwing more money at it's going to be a good idea, because I don't think we should argue with someone who can print money. But I do think we have a public that's very interested and very engaged, and have shown that in the case of what happened in Southwest Wyoming. So on and against.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time, but first time? Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question. My understanding is that this is an authorization, a line of credit, so to speak, and not an actual apportionment. Is that correct?
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Slagle for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against this amendment, I would agree with one of the previous representatives spoke to this. Our county commissioners already have standing, and we already added funding to the FERNERPA account earlier in this session. I would ask for a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Davis for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on and for this amendment. I think this gives the county commissioners the ability to shed light on something that if the executive branch does not take an action on, we can possibly shed a little light on there and bring it up front so that we can take action on it. So I think it's a good amendment.
Representative Walters for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment. We talk about being closest to the people. The county commissioners are certainly closer to the people than this very august body. So I think this is a great idea and give those county commissioners a little bit more money.
Yeah. Anybody else for their first time? Is that Representative Ward heading to a microphone? Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would argue that each of us are closer to the public since we represent a smaller number of people than an entire county.
All right, anybody else for their first time? Representative Alaman.
Folks, I think $75 million is a lot of money, and I don't think we need to be spending it here. Let's keep the bill intact, do what the bill meant to do. It was a bill out of committee. We worked on it hard. If 75 million is needed, we'll come back and ask for that. And that's where we should be. We should be asking this body for more money instead of putting it in an amendment and expecting it. Thank you.
All right, anybody else for their first time? Representative Stiff.
Mr. Speaker, so I see this again, like we had a few days ago. This is an education amendment, okay? Because all these lawyers, the $75 million that goes to legal fees, someone's got to pay for the lawyers' kids' education. On and for.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for clarification. So in the added language in section G, it's either the county commissioners or the attorney general. Is that correct?
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I was sitting in that chair that you're sitting in yesterday, and I didn't get to have much of this discussion, but I'm really excited about this. The 75 million, I think this could drag out, right? And this idea that we need to come back and ask for more was brought up multiple times yesterday. And, you know, I think that the idea of having the money available to draw down when we need to hire these attorneys and fight the feds, this is exactly what we need to do. We need to put our money where our mouth is. And I hear the understanding that we don't want to fight the man that prints money, but sometimes money talks. So on and for.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this wasn't spending yesterday, but it's spending today.
All right, anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time? Representative Alaman for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'd like to split this bill. I would like to split it, or this amendment, I'm sorry.
Do you want to divide the amendment?
I would like to divide this amendment, and I'm not sure, Mr. Speaker, for sure how I'm going to do it, but I'd like to divide it from the amount.
Representative Alaman, you got to have this in your hand, and you got to tell me which lines in which place.
Okay, I'm not prepared. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Somebody might help you. Maybe. No. Representative Alaman, okay, you need to go, line such and such to such and such, Division 1, like that. So Division 2, you need to line it out for us.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now would like to divide this amendment. Division 1 would be 1 through 4, and then 5 through 10, and then Division 2 would be 5 through 10, and then the last, Division 3 would be 11 through 19. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, if I could clarify, I think the good legislator means 1 through 4, and then 11 through 19 would be one division, and then the other division is lines 5 through
I was just going
10.
to say it's not divisible. Let him try again. It's not divisible that way. You'll have to try again.
Okay. So Division 1 would be 1 through 4. Division 2 would be 5 through 10.
1 to 4, 11 is 1, and this would be 2. So 1 to 4, and 11 to 19 is Division 1. Division 2 is 5.
And this is 3 then?
No, this is 1.
Representative
We'll-
Alaman, one more try.
We will get this straightened out one of these days.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Division 1 would be line 1 through line 4. Division 2 would be line 5 through line 10. And then the next division would be 11 through 19.
So that it is not divisible that way?
Or it would go back to 1. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, so you're going to have Division 1 be lines 1 through 4 and 11 through 19?
Yes, sir.
Or 11 through 18, and Division 2 being 5 through 10?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Division 2 is 5 through 10, Division 1 is lines 1 through 4 and 11 through 18. I would rule that that is divisible. Which division do you want to start with, Representative Alaman?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very important bill.
Representative Alaman, which division do you want to start with?
I'm sorry. Let's go with number 1.
Okay, number 1 is lines 1 through 4 and 11 through 18. So speak on Division 1.
Okay, this is a very important bill, and this amendment is really messing it up. But with this division, we can get it back to where it should be, back to protecting the people of Wyoming. With these amendments, this bill does not protect the people of Wyoming. With this amendment, what we will do is we will have the right, the state of Wyoming will have the right to take care of Wyoming problems. I ask for your no vote on this First Amendment.
Okay, Division 1, Representative Craigo on Division 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess the question for the bringer of the division is, how does this not protect the people of Wyoming? For example, what if the legislature or we can't convince management council to bring the lawsuit that we think they should bring, and the good counties in this, let's just take current events, the counties in the southwest part of Wyoming want to do it for us. This would say, here's the money, go do it. I guess I don't understand. And so question for the bringer of the division, how does this not protect the people of Wyoming?
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Wiley, are you coming to the mic or not on it? Representative Wiley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm on and for this. You know, I've spent months this past summer dealing with the RMP process, and the overreach of the federal government. And this is nothing to hurt this process here. This is strengthening it. We're putting a safety net in place that's going to allow our counties, if the ball's dropped at the 5-yard line by the chief executive, to pick the thing up, ask for the funding, and take it home for us to stop this federal overreach. This is doing nothing but protecting Wyomingites. Aye.
Representative Hornock, for your first time on Division 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So my question that I asked previously, it seems like this division of the amendment either allows county commissioners access to these funds to sue our federal government, or it allows the Attorney General. So just curious to the author of the amendment, if there's a division line, or if both entities still can be involved, if the state can be involved, if the county commissioners choose to get involved, does it then leave out those other agencies and things within the state? Thank you.
Representative Larson Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The problem I've had with this bill all along is that it somehow implies that the legislature will have standing in these federal processes, which to date, clearly we have not. And we somehow feel that we can, by the action of this bill, will suddenly have standing, which we will not. But counties do have standing. Counties have standing now, they'll have standing moving forward. So this amendment actually puts money to those entities that currently have standing in the federal process. So I think the amendment has validity in getting the money to those that can actually oppose the federal action. So on and for this division.
Anybody else for their first time on Division 1? Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thanks. Just a question, Mr. Speaker. So the language on 17 says you can't give the county commissioners money if the Attorney General has commenced an action, but it doesn't say if the legislature has commenced an action. So if the legislature is already doing this in our branch of government, can we still give money to the county commissioners to initiate a separate action, which they could do, and then the executive branch could come in and do a third action after the fact? I'm just making sure we could do 3 lawsuits at the same time to protect Wyoming.
All right, Representative Ward for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First for a second.
Boy, we must have got good sleep last night because we're right after it on the first bill. Anybody else for their first time on Division 1? Second time on Division 1 before the divider. Representative Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just gives us this amendment, I'm going to ask you to vote aye, gives us more tools in the toolbox. I don't think we're going to get into a situation where we have multiple lawsuits rolling along. This is in the instance where no one's bringing the action. We're giving authority to the counties. We're giving them the money to do it. That's all this is about. More tools in the toolbox in case we need it. Please vote aye.
Anybody else for their second time? Representative Wiley for your second time on Division 1.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. To the representative from the capital city, no, it's either or. So if the Attorney General is not pursuing litigation, it will allow the counties to tap into that funding and pursue litigation. Again, this is just a safety net. If you love Wyoming, vote aye.
Anybody else for their second time on Division 1? Representative Bear, you didn't have a first time. So anybody else for their second time before the bringer? Representative Alaman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this actually does, it takes our toolbox and dumps it upside down all along the highway, and we're running around behind looking for our tools. What this actually does, it gives the people of Wyoming and this body, if this body passes this amendment, we cut ourselves off at the knees. We no longer have the power to regulate this. So let us do what our legislature and the people of Wyoming expect us to do and fail this amendment. Thank you.
Question having been called on Division 1 of Second Reading Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 13, which is lines 1 through 4 and 11 through 19. All those in favor of Division 1 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Division 1 has, on Second Reading Amendment Number 1, has passed. We are now on Division 2, Representative Allemand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I love this amendment. I would gladly, to protect the people of Wyoming, I would spend $75 million. I'd spend $100 million. I'd spend $1 billion. If we're protecting the people of Wyoming, that's what we're here to do. Thank you.
All right, anybody else for their first time? Representative Wiley for your first time.
Yeah, again, I just would like our favorable support. Please vote aye. This is again, we're making a statement to the federal government about the overreach. I think this is really important. Vote aye.
Okay, anybody else for their first time, second time before the sponsor? Is the sponsor good? All right, question having been called. All those in favor of Division 2 of Second Reading Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Division 2 has been adopted. All right. We are now on Second Reading Amendment Number 2 to Senate File 13. Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 13. Ask for your favorable consideration. The easiest way to explain it is that deletes lines 4 through 7 on page 2 and deletes 19 through 22. This is that finding language, or at least a little part of it that I don't quite think is the right language. You'll see that apparently the legislature finds that the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, says that we have some standing. That's your enumerated powers. So I guess by it not saying we don't, we're somehow saying that we do, which doesn't make sense to me. Article 4, Section 3 just says all new states are equal to the existing states, which we already say there in lines 8 through 10. And I do think the language in lines 8 through 19 is still important. We're still recognizing that we're equal with all other states, that we're a co-equal branch of government, that federal land use plans in Wyoming are of great public interest and importance. But it does delete lines 19 through 22 that says the legislature has standing to prosecute actions for declaratory judgment to protect our interests. I just don't think that's appropriate for the bill. I did leave the rest of the language in that we do can prosecute actions for declaratory judgment on page 3, line 14. I just didn't think it was appropriate to say that in the findings because, well, the honest answer is we don't. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anybody else for their first time, second time, sensing your urge to vote? All those in favor of Second Reading Amendment Number 2 to Senate File 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Second Reading Amendment Number 2 to Senate File 13 has failed. All right. Senate File 13, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Representative Provenza, I think you have a privilege to do here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my great privilege this morning that we have a special performance by the Laramie High School's Chamber Orchestra. The group will be playing 3 pieces, and they are directed by Jennifer Lyford. So fellow representatives, please help me in welcoming these talented students to the House this morning.
We were trying not to fall asleep back there, so we were a little distracted. Thank you for being patient. Would you like me to use a microphone? This one, okay? All right, thank you so much for welcoming us here today. This is the Laramie High School Chamber Orchestra. It is made up of auditioned members only. We are missing a few today, so I will be conducting and playing today, but these are sophomores, juniors, seniors, and even a freshman or two that have auditioned to be in this group. It is our top orchestra of 3, and we will be playing 3 pieces for you. The first one is called Danzas de Panama. It is by an African-American composer, William Grant Still, and we are playing the second movement. It has 2 dance tunes to it. They will hopefully get your blood going and put you in a good mood, because I know what you do here is a lot of work, and it's hard work, and we want to bring you some joy today. So this is Danzas de Panama by William Grant Still. So we have a couple more pieces for you. Before we do, I just want to
introduce you a little bit to our students. A lot of these students are top academic students. A lot of them are athletes. They also participate in DECA and science fair, and they work really hard and they do a lot. And they are going to be our future leaders. And I love the fact that they come to our class and we have a great time, and we work really hard, but we have music to bring us joy every day. So we're hoping that we bring that to you today. But one thing I would ask a favor of today is we have a senior who is of voting age today. And I have warned my orchestra about this, but I didn't warn him. So this is his surprise birthday gift. Ben Moore is 18 today, and we would like to play for him Happy Birthday if you would be willing to sing along.
Oh, yeah, we're ready.
1, Thank you so much. I think that is a huge treat, and I think it's pretty cool that he's 18 today. So the next piece we're playing is by Sibelius, a Finnish composer. It is called Impromptu. It is actually based on 2 impromptus written for piano. The first one is rather haunting and sublime, and the second one is a little bit more light and whimsical. Maybe all emotions that have been felt here. Apparently in the Senate, there has been no whimsical yet, so we'll see. But if not, if it doesn't remind you of anything, hopefully it'll remind you of your home or something that will bring you some joy. So this is Impromptu by Sibelius. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm. We have one more toe tapper for you. It includes 3 fiddle tunes. The first one is Arkansas Traveler, and then we have Fire on the Mountain, and then Devil's Dream. So we hope you enjoy American Triptych, a fiddle tune triptych.
and I know you can sing, and actually singing is good for your brain. Here we go. You ready? Thank you so much.
Encore.
That was your encore.
Thank you. So, yeah, we're not doing much of that this year. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you guys and young people doing great things like that. It's awesome. So thank you.
The acoustics in here just got a whole lot better.
Wow. That might make even a grumpy old cowboy like music. I don't know. Next bill for our consideration would be Senate File 41. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 41, sponsored by Minerals, Banking Division, Classification and Salary Exemptions.
Senate File 41 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall a bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 54.
Senate File 54, sponsored by Revenue, Homeowners Tax Exemption.
Senate File 54, and it has amendments. Representative Storr, I believe. Representative Storr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 1 to SF 54 and ask for your favorable consideration. This is mostly an amendment to clarify the language. I realized in talking to members of the body yesterday, there was a little bit of confusion over the language we used in the standing committee amendment that we adopted yesterday. And you have a handout that also references what we're trying to do here. So we're not trying to give a $12 million house a $3 million exemption. We're just trying to limit the total exemption that anyone can get to 25% of that $3 million. So you'll see that as the property values go up, the exemption off of the fair market value remains at $750,000. And so this allows folks, if you look on the other side of your handout, you'll see a home in that's 1,100 square feet, priced at $1.4 million. So it's properties like that who's seen their taxes double over the last 3 years. It's folks like that that we want to make sure that they get a break as well. The other thing we did with this amendment was just make the language consistent with HB 45, the property tax cap that this body passed, in terms of the definition of residential structure, so that the assessors are able to interpret these bills consistently when we get done with them. So mostly a cleanup, and I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Anybody else on second reading amendment number 1? Vice Chairman Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to say that there's just been some really good work done on and support by the good representative from the western side of the state. When we say, you know, we're doing cleanup and things, but it's important work. Words do matter, as we know. We've been dealing with 7, 8, 9 different property tax bills, and some of the words have, you know, maybe not been correct, and we're trying to. This goes into law. We're trying to make it correct. So, and she's just really done great work on that. I appreciate it. On and support.
Representative Hornock for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question for the bringer. This amendment, it deletes the amendment we passed yesterday, which had some dates. Could you clarify what happens with that, please?
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Storr for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a moment on the dates.
So here's the amendment, and then so the amendment you've got delete line 5 through 23, so it deletes 5 through 23, which isn't really about the dates, but if you want to, so your amendment deletes 5 through 23.
I'd ask if you could clarify which dates are in question.
You're the second time. You can answer the question best you can, otherwise answer it offline, because we're not doing a back and forth here. We're in the last time speaking on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't believe it adjusts the dates at all. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 54 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Second reading amendment number 1 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is second reading amendment number 2, Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this amendment, basically, let me give you, I move second amendment, or second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 54. So basically what this amendment does is I'm giving this body another opportunity to increase the amount we give back to the people. And I know there's some complexities here, and I won't get into that into too much detail, because I think we need to keep this sort of quick and dirty. But in short, what I've done here, I've proposed a couple of major changes to this bill. First, I'm recommending in this bill that we move back to the $200,000 exemption for the people. And what that basically does is that bumps this up from roughly that $125 million amount that we're going to leave in people's pockets next year, and bumps it up to about that $300 million. So I'm asking that the body does that. The second thing this bill does is it also extends it to that second year. So let me just kind of go over it in a little bit more detail. In short, in the first year, largely due to the fact that the department that manages these taxes couldn't do both, in the first year, it does the $200,000 exemption to basically give a little bit more back to our people. It does load the bottom end. I admit that. Those are probably some of the people in the most need. And then in the second year, it actually gives back the $200 million or the 25%. The reason I didn't put that into the first year, which is what the previous representative has in her bill. The reason I couldn't put it in the first year is the department that manages that was not able to, they can't implement it in 2024. So we couldn't get that put into the first year. Otherwise, I would have preferred to go that direction, to add them both. So that's why I'm going down this route. Now, from my perspective, it's simply this. I want to give more back here. I want to give a little bit more back, to leave more in the pockets of the people in the next couple of years. Give us the opportunity to get on a healthy glide path and take care of our folks. Again, we talk about this being a fairly large number, and it is, but think about what it's for. It's to leave some money in the people's pockets who we know are hurting right now. So I ask for your favorable consideration and your aye vote on this amendment, and stand for questions.
Representative Bear for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment. I signed on to this amendment because I thought the bringer really was looking at some very intelligent ways to approach this from two perspectives. One is maximizing the relief to those people whose disposable incomes are being crushed by the taxes that we've had in property taxes over the last 3 years, those increases. They're being addressed right away, year one. But they're also being helped with this unique feature in this amendment of whichever is greater in year two. But then on top of that, the bringer of the previous amendment during committee brought up this percentage methodology, which I support because it's very fair, and our Constitution requires that we have a fair and equitable taxation. So this really is addressing what our founding fathers, or at least those back in 1988 when we put it into our Constitution, were trying to achieve by fairness. So you get both features here in year two. I'll mention again what I mentioned yesterday as I was opposing the Standing Committee amendment, and that is that this $200,000 mark allows 46% of the homeowners in this state to be exempt from any property tax whatsoever. Those are your constituents. This is a bold act, but it's what our constituents are demanding of us. This is, if you just look at the interest of the people of Wyoming, this is one of the top issues. This is our opportunity to address it. We've had several other bills go through this body. They each chip away at it, but this one truly addresses it. On for the amendment.
Vice Chair Oakley for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against. So probably everybody's getting exhausted of this. We really have been tossing these ideas around, and it's great. It's been a good discussion. But we're trying to find a balance here of what is a program that can be administered, what is a solution that can give some relief, but also not have, $300 million fiscal notes. And I think we're finally getting there on this bill. And then we go and completely change it. So if you look at this, we have one program that we will expect our people at home and the Department of Revenue to do for 2024. Then we turn around and we change it, and we do a different program in 2025 that has two different types of analyses. So they're supposed to do both of them, and then whichever is less. And this greatly would increase the fiscal note. And then the program goes away. So this is extremely difficult to administer. It's expensive. This just takes us back from all the work and the discussions that we've done as far as making this easy to administer and affordable. And the reality is it's just not time to kind of jerk that all back and change this on and against.
Representative Heiner for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Definition of two words. Relief. Definition of relief is immediate support to minimize suffering. Reform. Definition of reform is to improve by change. Now, when we left our districts and came here to Cheyenne, it's been almost a month ago, what did we hear? Did they want property tax reform, or did they want property tax relief? I heard relief. They want some relief from the suffering they have right now immediately, because they are having a hard time paying for their property taxes. So with the existing bill as it's amended to 25%, in my districts, the average home price is right around $200,000, maybe a little under that. With the existing bill, they will get about $150 to $200 off on their taxes. Is that immediate relief, or is that a Band-Aid? Is that going to really make a difference in their lives? And how can I go home and tell these people that some homeowners will get almost $4,000 off on their property taxes? That's the way the existing bill is that we have right now. So this amendment will change it. It'll bring immediate relief to those people that really, really need it. Those people that are struggling to pay their taxes as well as their grocery bill. So that's why I'm in favor of this amendment. Let's give some relief, which is immediate to minimize the suffering. That's what we've been asked to come back with, is relief, not necessarily reform.
Representative Ward, sorry.
No problem, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much. To the good district rep from District 55, regarding affordable, are we talking about affordable to the state or affordable to the taxpayer? I would argue we should be concerned about what's affordable to the taxpayer. And in accordance with Rule 12-4, I ask for a recorded vote on this amendment.
Chairman Newsom for your first time. Oh, we got to get the second. Sorry about that. Now, Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for the bringer of the bill. As we layer these amendments on, I often get lost, as maybe many of you do. In the amendment that we just passed, it would be for a single-family home, and that would include rental homes and everything. Does this amendment take it back to the original bill of a primary residence being the only qualifier? Just a question. And then a reminder that property tax goes to our counties to pay for our schools and our fire departments and our hospitals and our county and city governments, and not to the state. Thank you.
Chairman Harshman.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a very good question, and I think that's really why we didn't go with the engrossed version, because you're going to set up a whole new program for 1 year in the second year. And so, and I just remind the body, so we're going to, I think it's an interesting debate over the percentage-wise or the dollar amount-wise piece, and then the other debate is over 2 years. And I think, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to divide this amendment so we can have those debates separately. Mr. Chairman, I think it's divisible on line 12 right after 2024. Just draw a line right there, everything in front of that. And paragraph A would be Division 1, and then the second year would be Division 2. So we could debate Division 1, the dollar amount versus the percentage that we adopted yesterday. Division 2, the second year piece.
So, Chairman Harshman, Division 1, that would be A down on line 9 down to 12 at the period on 24?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so Division 1 is that. And then Division 2 is starting within to the bottom of that written language on line 18. Is that Division 2?
That's what I have, Mr. Speaker. Unless somebody reads that differently with the other deletions.
I'm gonna rule that as divisible.
Point of order.
Okay.
I need what's the rest of the amendment? Is it going in one of those sections, or is it going to be a 3?
So Chairman Harshman, explain how the division works.
Mr. Chairman, I think, you could probably put that with 1. They would go with Division 1, the rest of the amendment. I believe. And I think we might have to clean that up a little bit. And if somebody can maybe add to that, Mr. Speaker.
So give me by line what you're doing.
Mr. Chairman, I think that lines 4 through 12, 2024, would be division number 1. And I think also, and let me just look at that House Standing Committee Amendment, lines 5, lines 20 and 21.
We still have 1 through 3.
Mr. Chairman, we're sitting here and I might just back up on this, Mr. Chairman. I think, here's the debate, Mr. Chairman, and I'll withdraw this.
Okay.
We really want to talk about a percentage amount or a dollar amount. We want to talk about 1 year or 2 year, and this has them both in it. So maybe we can, dispatch of this amendment and come back and have those in separate amendments. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right.
Mr. Speaker, I'll withdraw that division
Yep.
request.
Got that. Division is withdrawn. Anybody else for their first time? Chairman Eklund?
Mr. Speaker, and so we're looking at $300 million. It's been traditional in the legislature in 14 years, excuse me, that we put money into savings, and we've talked about that, and I'm concerned about doing that. I will say that property tax has been a huge issue for all of us. I agree, my district as well. But I would guess that the majority of work that I do with constituents has to do with the services they receive. And I don't want us to look over one part of this as most important, one part of what we do here, and then start subtracting services that the people of Wyoming might get. So I would hope that I don't quite understand the amendment. I think it's really complicated, and I'd be a no vote on it, but I think we need to kind of hold the line, make sure we have a balance of services and tax relief for people, and continue down the lines that the state's been doing. We've successfully done both of those, and it's been really difficult on this small budget that we work on.
Representative Storr for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and against the amendment. The bill as it reads now is equivalent to, the fiscal note is equivalent to if we did a $70,000 across the board dollar amount. So at $200,000, we've essentially tripled it. And then we've gone from 1 to 2 years. So we've doubled that. So it's 6X where we are right now. So that's about $750 million of property tax that we'll lose over 2 years. if we support this amendment. As well, the $200,000 limit, again, really doesn't help the folks who have been hurt the hardest, who have had the highest increases and also have the highest dollar value of property tax that they're paying, even for modest homes up in the northwest part of the state. So on and against. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative, that wouldn't be Bear, Representative Banks for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. In the conversations I've had this morning, we were talking about property tax relief, and you know, there's really not a one-size-fits-all approach for the state. In my neck of the woods, a dollar amount would do a lot better. It would help more people. And so I'm probably going to vote for this amendment because of that. One of the biggest things and benefits I see with this amendment is it then, in the second year, gives an option. If it works better in our neck of the woods that you get the dollar amount, that can happen. If it works better in somebody else's neck of the woods that the percentage would work better, they get that option. I like that approach because then it won't be a one-size-fits-all statewide. And I encourage you to look at the handout that the good representative from District 23 handed out. It's very helpful to determine where your area, your district would benefit and what the dollar amount would be depending on which approach we do, the dollar amount or the percentage. So at this point, I would be in favor of this amendment. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Obermueller for your first time.
First for a second, please.
All right, anybody else for their first time? Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thanks. Just a question, because on the First Amendment, we got a chart. I mean, I could look at what it did for my county, and I guess I'm just wondering if there's some more information that could be provided. I mean, this is a 9-digit number we're voting on, and I guess I'd like to know where at on that 9-digit spectrum it is before taking a vote of this magnitude. So probably against it for today. Hopefully it comes back tomorrow with some more information that we could all look at how it would affect our county and our constituents. But it's a big pill to swallow without more information today. But maybe if the bringers of the amendment could provide that information kind of anecdotally about where they think the finances are.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Craigo for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question for the bringer of the amendment. What's the exact dollar figure on this amendment for year one and for year two? I think that'd be helpful for all of us to know exactly what are we agreeing to here before we vote on that. And then I just want to point out, I mean, there is, as the good representative from the Bighorn Basin said, there's no one size fits all. There isn't a good option that helps everybody. But I will say, like he said, in my county, in my district, in my counties, in my district, I mean, the dollar figure helps my folks more. On the flip side, there are counties where taxes haven't gone up as much as they have in other counties. And so there's a certain breakover point in there where the percentage does help people in my particular district. And so I don't know where the sweet spot is. I've been trying to roll around in my mind a way to do both. I'm seeing if I can get that figured out. But, in the meantime, I'd like to know exactly what this amendment's going to cost, because it's more than, it has to be more than the $300 million figure per year that came down the hall, because when we go to year two, we're actually including the percentage as well. And so you get to pick whichever is more for you. So I don't know if it's 700 million, 800 million. We just need to know that.
Anybody else for their first time? Second time before the sponsor, Representative Bear for your second time.
Thank you, Mr.
You've been a
Speaker.
first time.
Those who are asking for numbers, I hope the bringer of the amendment will be able to crunch some numbers. I think he's already got some anecdotal numbers for you. But I'm just going to speak in big terms. Last year, this body voted to put $1.4 billion into savings. About half of that, $700 million, is accessible. This bill here, or this amendment here, would, if you agree with the numbers that were brought from my colleague on the Revenue Committee, would take up a lot of that over a 2-year period. So the good chairman of Ag said that, he's afraid of losing services. Folks, that's in savings. It's not paying for services right now. And our constituents have gone through this. We all agree that they've suffered, but they're not seeing any additional services. So they understand they're paying more in, but they're receiving less or the same amount, whichever their perspective is. So from their perspective, we've done very little for them, but the state has socked away more money. If you look at our savings as a whole, we've got enough to run this state without one more dime coming into it for 6 years.
Let's stay on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the amendment, I challenge you to find where your constituents have that kind of savings. So we're saying that we're going to take some of that money in this amendment, and we're going to give it back to the taxpayers, those who are suffering. The amendment is very novel in the way it addresses both those who are suffering the most as far as their disposable income, that's the $200,000. 46% of the homeowners in this state will pay no property taxes for 2 years. That addresses the kind of thing that we were talking about in previous bills about a clawback, because remember, these people have paid these taxes in over the last several years. No bill that we've presented so far in this session will address that issue. This would, on and for the amendment.
Chairman Harshman for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, just to remind the body, there are really two things in this amendment that are worthy of debate. I prefer the dollar amount over the percentage. I was going to bring that amendment just to change that back, and I'll probably do that on third reading tomorrow. But this amendment, I think, changes the bill, obviously, to a 2-year program, and I think that's worthy of the debate as well. I would like to address the savings piece. Again, these are local taxes that stay in your local community. So none of the property taxes that people pay were saved in any permanent fund at the state level. Most of that surplus, you'll recall here last year, came from excess mineral income that came to the state. And then, of course, federal dollars that we were able to swap with general fund dollars on a one-time, and so we saved those in a one-time to guarantee our taxes stay low in this state. Now, on the property tax issue for locals, obviously, we've got a menu coming forward, and I spoke yesterday about the increases, and then I was actually talking about 22 data. When you go back and look at 23 data, 22 out of 23 counties had double-digit increases. The one that didn't have double-digit was 8%. And so that's going to end with the House Bill 45 that we passed through. And I think that bill will be signed into law. That's going to be a huge, huge reform. You're not going to see double-digit increases in all of our counties.
Remember to stay on the
And
amendment.
thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that gentle nudge. And then we do have other reforms coming, with the long-term Wyomingites who've been here and our relief for our property tax refund program, which we've even expanded, Mr. Speaker. And so I think as we roll out this menu, I think it's important to keep this to a 1-year, whether it's dollar or percentage. I'm going to root for a dollar amount. But I think a 1-year deal. And then as we work this, and then the 68th legislature was going to be able to continue this on and move forward as we move forward. Because we've got, 2-3 days together, 3 days, and then the 67th is over. And there'll be time for a new group to kind of address this and see where we're at. So I'm on and against, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Representative Heiner for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appreciate the comments that have been made in the spirit of debate. We talk about relief and reform. Relief is temporary in nature, and that's the reason for this 2-year period for this bill, to provide temporary relief while we work on reform. We've had some good ideas brought to the floor to reform our property tax. The Good Country coach has some good ideas. that I've appreciated, and there's some other ideas out there that we can utilize to reform, but we still need to do something for immediate relief. And this will provide immediate relief to our constituents that we can take home with us and say, we heard your cry for help, and we did something about it. Now, the 300 million cost, if that's too much for us, maybe we cut that $200,000 exemption down to $100,000. That's worked in other states to the west of us. Worked very well for them, and that would cut that $300 million down. But still, it'd help the people most in need, the people that are struggling to make their daily purchases because they have such a property tax. This would cut their property tax on a normal home in half. So I strongly believe that we should go to a dollar amount for temporary relief and continue to focus on a reform in the future. But let's get some money let's get some relief in the hands of our taxpayers as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Representative Storer for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I attended a Senate Hearing Committee, Revenue Committee meeting last week about the bill HB 4 that we had sent over on the refund program. And I'll share with you the handout that the Department of Revenue provided. I was amazed to learn that.
We're gonna stay on this bill and this amendment.
We're getting there. I was shocked to learn that less than 10% of the people who are eligible for that program are actually using it. That is true relief, and it is available now. We just need to make sure that people understand how to do that and encourage folks to do as well. So that is really a great opportunity that we have provided. And probably 40% of our households could actually be eligible for that this year. On and against this amendment because we are really trying to help people across the state who have been impacted in a fair way and do it equitably. The folks that I'm trying to help are longtime residents who are now retirees. They're school teachers in our schools. They're childcare providers. They're snowplow drivers. They're nurses that work in our hospital who serve all of Northwest Wyoming. We are sending a lot of money to the School Foundation Program. More than $80 million last year came out of my community in property tax. It's those folks that we're trying to help. These people are supporting the schools in your town. They're working in restaurants and hotels that produce sales tax, that help all of us keep our taxes low. I think the at least we can do is help them out. Thank you very much. On and against.
Chairman Eklund for your second time.
Mr. Speaker, so when I talked about services, I'm talking about maintaining what we do. I'm not talking about increasing anything. And we need to know what the dollar figure is. So we know it's somewhere between 300 million and 750 million. So let's say it's $500 million even. This legislature's lived through times when we had to balance a budget on a reduced budget with $500 million less, and it was tough. We had to scramble to make that work. We made it work, but let's be careful about putting this hit on ourselves and on the state of Wyoming. $500 million is too much. Let's come back. Let's know exactly what the figure amount is and be reasonable about what we're going to do to the state of Wyoming.
Representative Obermueller for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since my vote is going to be out there in the public record, I think it's my vote no on this amendment. I think I need to explain why I have a no vote, and you all have your profile on your desk, and I'll walk you through where these numbers appear on your profile so that you can come to a better understanding of what we are looking at. On page 3 of your profile, line 37, you see Senate File 54, homeowners tax exemption. And and you'll see the House status and Senate status both show a credit of $446 million. So where does that money go? It's coming out of there. It must go somewhere on this document. So if you turn to the next page, page 4, the debit side of that credit appears on line 25. And it's a positive number of 278,700. So those two numbers do not match up. And why do they not match up? It's because the difference of $167,400,000 is the money that actually goes to the local governments. It doesn't come to the state. This isn't an argument about money in people's pockets versus the state spending the money. The $167 million goes to your locals. Those are the mills that you are paying into your local governments to pay for the services that we've already heard about. The other part of and then the expenses, you can see in the profile on page 4, that on line 15, there's a Senate File 54, homeowners tax exemption, minus $77,900,000. Well, what is that? That is a reduction in the 12 mills. That's school money. So you're reducing money for education at the 12 mill level. And so when you talk about, so you're trading dollars in this pocket for services in the other pocket, and that's the policy decision that we're making here today. Look at line 52, it shows up again. Senate File 54, homeowners tax exemption. That's a $200 million reduction, and what is that? That's the 31 mills that shows up on your property tax bill. So the trade-offs here are all local trade-offs, whether the money is with the people or whether the money is in the services, and that's the policy decision we have to make. And so I am on and against the amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Locke for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to answer just 2 or 3 questions really quickly. First, this does not go back to the original bill and some of the language that was caught there. This was actually going back to I did not delete the original amendment, or excuse me, the committee amendment. So it does not perturb that language. One of the other questions that obviously has been asked many times, well, let me address one other really quickly. Difficulty to administer. It is true that there's a lot of issues related to that, hence the reason that I took this approach to do the $200,000 in year 1 and move to the addition of the $200,000 or 25%, whichever is greater in year 2, to give us an opportunity to give our departments that work this the chance to adjust for that. One other issue that's obviously been asked many times, I apologize for all of you that I did not explain this very well. That $300 million number that you've heard, that is in year 1, with that additional of the 25%, it bumps up. I haven't gotten the exact number. I'm trying to work that, and I do apologize for not having the exact number, but it's going to be in the ballpark somewhere between, I'm going to say somewhere between 650 and 700 million, and here's why. Because that 200,000 actually takes a fairly large, captures a fairly large piece of the lower end of that 25%. So I wanted to explain that because that's where most of the houses are, because that 25%, that 200,000 actually captures the 25% up to $800,000 houses. So it's a much smaller house population in that higher end. So it's in that range. I would probably say it's in somewhere in the high sixes, right around 700 million over the course of the 2 years that I proposed. So let me get back to this. Let me just talk a little bit about it. This is really our last chance to give I'm going to call it real relief, okay? We've got small packets of relief floating around the two houses. This is a chance for real relief, okay? And I want everybody to focus on that and realize that when we say, oh man, that budget's big, yep, we're trying to leave some money in people's pockets when we need it, not protect the pool of money that we have specifically. Yes, we do have to do that, but in this case, I think the people need it most. And so what I'm asking this body to do, punch up. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking you to punch up and vote aye on this amendment. Thank you.
All right. On second reading amendment number 2, Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemande? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clouston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Harrelson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? No. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 25 aye, 37 no.
Second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 54 has failed. The next amendment for our consideration is second reading amendment number 3, Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully withdraw second amendment number 3 for Senate File 54.
Yay. Second reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 54 has been withdrawn. The next amendment for our consideration is second reading amendment number 4. Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second amendment reading number 4 for Senate File 54. And here's another opportunity. Again, I'm trying to push that number up, that relief number up to our people as much as I can. And I'm really not in at all disagreement with some of the previous amendment that was brought that had the 25%. So really all this amendment does, is it adjusts that 25% to 35%, and then it extends it to a 2-year relief bill is what it does. Now let me talk a little bit about that. So for those of you who've looked at the numbers on the 25%, that was roughly, I believe in the previous a bill, that showed about 125 million. So what this 35 does, it moves it up to, in the first year, it moves it up into the range of approximately 160 million a little bit. So it moves it up from that 125 up to about 160. And then in the second year, it shows that the estimates from the department go up a little bit. I don't have the exact number of that second year, but it goes up probably around, at 30%, it goes up about an additional 4 to 5 million. So this pushes that up around 170 million. So this pushes it to that 160 million in the first year and 170 million in the second year. Again, this would be staying with the percentage support across the board. It's just giving a little bit more back to our folks. And again, I think I ask for your favorable consideration. Please vote aye on this. I think this gives more relief to our people, and I think that's what we were sent here for. Thank you.
All right, Representative Oakley for your first time. No? Or yes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against, I appreciate the relentless work by the good representative. I think we've discussed and hashed and rehashed. We've looked at the numbers. 25% is significant. It's for all of your constituents. It's fair. You start increasing that again. We just heard 160 and then 170. That's possibly conservative. It's $330 million for the next 2 years. These aren't insignificant numbers. Doing the 25% is a very significant relief and at very significant cost. And we're making that. That's what we've done here, right? We're going to provide that relief. We're going to do this for our constituents. We've heard you, but we already have a heck of a bill attached with this. So I would just urge this. We've talked about it. I think we all understand it. I think we're there. So I would just resist this amendment. Again, thank you.
Representative Storer for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against, but just recognizing, this is really about, is it a 1 or 2 year program, or is it 25% or 35%? The difference is 110 million about is what we estimate the 1 year under the current 25% is. I would agree with the sponsor of the bill that the fiscal note is probably about 330 million over 2 years, with that 40% increase from 25% to 35%. So, it's what you want to do.
Anybody else for their first time? Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I read it and as it sits now, the appropriation in the bill is still 125 million, and that the good bringer withdrew his amendment that would have increased that. And so now I'm curious, if we were to pass this amendment, which I'm opposed to, would our counties, our cities be on the hook for that other additional amount if we don't further amend this to increase the appropriation? Thank you.
Well, somebody's ringing. Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Oakley, Representative Oakley for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just briefly, I have told some of the good representatives, if we keep this tight, we had taken it, and as it stands, it's at 1 year. If it's easy to administer and it's fair, we can have the discussion, and I would even support doing this for 2 years, as long as we resist these amendments that make it such a large fiscal note. So still on and against.
Representative Storer for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's correct that the bill from the Senate came out with 2 years, so that's also something that could be considered in conference committee, should we decide we want to go that direction.
All right. Anybody else for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So to answer a couple of questions, someone had asked about the backfill, and I will say I was planning on getting a backfill amendment in for this, and I'm sorry that did not happen. So that's on me, but I certainly am open to backfilling this. Again, I think we have the money in my mind. Yes, it's a higher number. And yes, it's, as I mentioned to you, it's roughly that 160 million plus that 170 million over the course of the 2 years. But it's fairly easy to administer this approach we've talked with the department, of course, and the department presented at the committee meeting. And so at the end of the day, I just want to throw this out. Again, this is an opportunity for us to enhance the amount of relief we're leaving in our people's pockets in the next 2 years. So again, I'm asking everybody to punch up a little bit. I'm asking for your support, move this forward. Again, I would be open to move this. I would be open for that backfill amendment. But again, please vote aye on this amendment. Thank you.
Sorry, all of those in favor of second reading amendment number 4 to Senate File 54 signify by saying aye. All those opposed? No. Second reading amendment number 4 has failed. Division being called. All those in favor of second reading amendment number 4, please rise. Thank you. Now, all opposed, please rise. All right, thank you. So second reading amendment number 4 has failed, 25 to 36. Senate File 54, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 69.
Senate File 69, sponsored by Senator Landon, hospice care reimbursements.
Senate File 69, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. So, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, I think it's about that time. I think we'll just cut this second reading in half and go to lunch.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House stand in recess until 2 p.m.
Are there any committee announcements? Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, will meet, as soon as you get lunch and get down there in room 6 to discuss interim topics.
Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 4, Education, will meet in room 5 to do interim subjects, get a bite to eat, and we'll see you down there.
Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's more of a privilege, but letting you know that lunch today is being provided by your Wyoming community service providers who serve over more than 1,000 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and employ about 1,100 staff members throughout Wyoming communities. They'll be pleased to meet with you over the lunch hour down in the usual lunch basement conference room.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Joint Appropriations Committee will meet at 9 o'clock tomorrow to go through interim topics.
All right, I got, I think, one more announcement.
Tomorrow, 8 a.m., room 6.
Room 6. All right, Select Water will be reviewing interim topics tomorrow at 8 a.m. in room 6. All right, you heard the majority floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned until 2 p.m.